I started writing for Brazilian Vogue as a freelancer, sometimes with the traditional press and then sometimes with the influencer group.
Where's the passion for beauty came from?
I have a lot of early childhood memories of being very mesmerized by an advertising campaign that had makeup and sparkles and colors. When I look back, there is this magic component to makeup that is so full of possibilities.
But in Brazil, we didn't have access to many magazines as well, right?
Even the teachers, they were like,
Beauty
journalism? What? The whole way of consuming content changed so much throughout these years. So most people don't know how much work you have to do to create content. It's a lot.
But people don't know that.
People don't know that. I know.
You're getting this, right? So she's being about it's a long journey. Hi everyone, I'm Mara Genovese. I'm the CEO and founder of MG Empower, a global integrated market agency, and this is our Beyond Marketing podcast. Today I have the pleasure to have with me a great friend of mine that I admired so much, Vic Ceridono. Vicky has been a beauty reference for almost 20 years, and she has launched her own beauty brand in 2022, and she also has been acknowledged by Glamour magazine in Brazil as the winner of the 2023 Generation Glamour Award in the category Beauty Entrepreneur. In today's episode, we will hear about her amazing trajectory and learn a lot about moving from the influencer scene to the entrepreneur space, marketing, beauty, and loads of good stories. Vicky, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. It's been a long time that we're trying to have this moment, right? So I'm very excited that you're here today. And thank you so much for taking the time. Vicky, before we start, I'd love you to give a bit of intro to our audience about you, about your career, so then the audience can get familiarized with you.
Okay, so I am from Brazil, like you. I've been living in London for 10 years. I've been a beauty journalist for 18 years.
Wow, 18 years already. Wow.
Yes, a long time. So I started my career as an intern on a Brazilian fashion website. But I always loved the beauty side. So I was always trying to kind of create a beauty section where there was none at this website. And then I started writing for Brazilian Vogue as a freelancer. And 1 year after that, I started my own blog, Vic Beauté, which is 16 years now. So I was still in university, and I did my degree. In Brazil it's a bit different, but I took a journalism degree. So I kind of went throughout my career. I was always doing magazines and editorial and blogs. Just one blog, sorry. So I was always doing magazines and my blog, kind of parallel. The blog was a hobby at that time, obviously. It was really the start of the whole blogging scene. And I feel really one of the dinosaurs that, I was really in the beginning of everything. So it was really interesting to see how all of this social media developed as well, because I think blogs came first, and then we had YouTube, and then we had Twitter, and then we had Instagram, and now obviously you have TikTok. So it was really interesting to be there, kind of
the early age,
very early age, and seeing everything start. And on the other side, I had a very traditional, because then I went to be beauty editor at Brazilian Vogue. And I was with Brazilian Vogue in total for 11 years, between freelancing and being beauty editor. So it was really interesting to kind of have that double life where I was sometimes with the traditional press and then sometimes with the influencer kind of group. And I moved to London 10 years ago, so that kind of continued. And then I had another double life that was my Brazilian life and my London life, because I always kept working in Brazil. And obviously, I started in Brazil. My base started in Brazil. My base has always been bigger in Brazil, even though I've been here for so long. Obviously, the language barrier is tricky, but so it was really interesting kind of having the opportunity to see all of that happen and explode as it did. And I love beauty, and I always loved creating content, however that content was. So writing a piece for the magazine, or doing a tutorial on YouTube, or writing a blog post, or, with Instagram and all the resources we have. And I think it's been amazing. And then last year I launched my own makeup brand, Vic Beauté. And that was 4 years in the making. So I was working on the project for 4 years until we launched last year. And it's been very, very interesting. Like, I always joke that I feel like I'm already on my third MBA, real life MBA.
Vicky, I love the journey that you had, because you mentioned that you started writing a blog, which was like 10, 12 years ago? 16 years ago. Yeah, so you've been, as you said, like on that journey, and see all the evolution from like blogging to, magazines, as you said, and the social media. But before we dive in on like why you started writing a blog, where's the passion for beauty came from?
I really think I was born like that. I have a lot of early childhood memories of being very mesmerized by makeup, or I don't know, an advertising campaign that had makeup and sparkles and colors, and that always caught my attention. So that is one of the first things that I remember. And I also remember very well my grandma had on her bathroom, she had on her powder room. So my grandma had on her powder room these dark green acrylic boxes with her makeup, and I used to love going there and playing with stuff.
How old you are?
No, it's very, very young.
Very
I don't know,
well,
less than 10 for sure, probably 5, 6. And my mother has never been into makeup. She's very practical. And I feel like my mother's generation, there's a lot of that kind of generation that don't really use a lot of makeup. So my mother was always like, what's going on? Why do you like these things? And I remember also stealing the few things she had. And I loved it. And I don't know why it attracts me so much. I think now nowadays when I look back, I think there is this magic component to makeup that is so full of possibilities. Obviously, you have the colors and the sparkles and the textures. That is very ludical. Mm-hmm. Does this word exist?
I think ludic, yes, exists.
Yeah. I don't know, dreamy, whatever, which I think is really attractive for kids. It's like if you look at painting, and it's kind of the same. But when I was growing up, I started to understand that the power of beauty and makeup, and how that really can have a positive impact on your self-esteem. And when you feel better, everything is better. Like when you look in the mirror and you don't feel good, that really has an impact on your life, even if it's a small thing, but it's there, and it's the opposite is true. If you look in the mirror and you like what you see and you feel good about yourself, I think that really has a positive chain effect that, it will have a good impact on your day. It will have a good impact on how you present yourself to the world. And that, as a chain reaction, it really it goes bigger. So my whole thing, and that's why I started my blog, is because I wanted to, and what I could see from kind of like from outside, because I was always very connected with beauty, makeup. I love doing my makeup, so I would spend my afternoons when I didn't have school, had school in the morning, so afternoons were free sometimes, and then I would just be doing my makeup at home just to train, practice, whatever. And I was doing all my friends' makeup for our, Sweet 16 parties, and then I started doing my mother's friends' makeup, so I also had that not that short career as a makeup artist. I think I was doing makeup for like 4 or 5 years, that I had clients and I went home to their houses and did their
Before
makeup.
the blog? Or?
That was kind of like together. I always had 3+ jobs. I always did a lot of.
You are that person.
Yeah, I really am. I can't. I just. But when you love it, I think you feel happy doing it. So it's a lot of work. It is, but I feel I get a lot of fulfillment.
And the blog was more for you to write about, because you said that you started at an early age. If your grandmother, look at her makeup. And then how did you find out about, there's a blog? So because you at the time you're already studying journalism, right? So you combine your journalist skills with your love for beauty, and then you thought, I'm going to start writing about beauty. So what was the first, do you remember what your first post?
Yes, of course. So basically, I've always loved reading about beauty. So, and fashion as well. I love fashion as well. So growing up, the options we had were magazines and books. So I had a lot of makeup books. All that I could find, I still have them, all of them. And I used to read all the magazines. So when I was very like a teenager, my mom was like, why are you reading? And it's so funny because my parents, they always thought I was a bit funny in the sense that like no one else was really so into that. And I had a party and I would be with like my chamomile tea doing let's remove my eye bags and relax a little bit before the party, because when you are 16 you have such a busy life. But I always loved reading about it. So it's so funny to imagine if I was being me nowadays. You have so many places to get that content. You have videos,
But at the time you didn't have.
So it was magazines. I mean, Allure magazine was my Bible. I will never forget the day I found out Allure existed. Because bear in mind, there was no internet. So it's not easy to discover something exists until you see it. So I remember I was in this hair salon that I used to go in São Paulo. And I saw this magazine, and the cover was like a makeup, like a full makeup shoot. And I was like, and then I started reading, and I was like, oh my God, there is such a thing as a beauty magazine. And then I literally spent all my allowance on magazines. All of it.
But in Brazil, we didn't have access to many magazines as well, right?
There were a few newsstands that had all the American and the English magazines, so I would buy all of them, and they were very expensive at the time. But that for me was what I wanted. So when I went to do my journalism degree, I knew I wanted to go focus on the fashion and the beauty industry. I was the only one in my class that wanted to do that, so it was very funny because even the teachers, they were like, beauty journalism, what? This is very superficial. And I was like, yeah, whatever, if you think. I don't think so. Because I really always believed in that power of beauty, that I knew at the time it wasn't superficial, but now after 18 years, having that exchange with people that, read my blog, learn how to do their makeup, or just read it to feel better about themselves, I know that it really has an impact.
No, and especially because you were reading magazine at the time, so you saw the importance of the beauty on the editorials of the magazine.
Exactly.
So you had that understanding that was not as superficial, because for the magazines to have those beautiful editorial, they need to have the beauty element into it, right?
Exactly. And I knew the effect it had on me, and I knew I wasn't alone, So when I started my university, internet was still very early days. And I realized, and then I was like, okay, there are blogs. Blog is a thing. And then I started reading a lot of blogs. And there were a few specific beauty blogs in the US, 1 or 2 in the UK, and I started reading these blogs, and that was a real game changer.
Do you remember which blogs there were?
I don't think I'm gonna remember the names. If I think, you know what? For sure, if I go on my...
You will find.
How do you say the thing where you saved websites on
The
your browser?
history.
No, like we used to, things that we don't do anymore,
Yeah.
like having all your like websites that you like organized by category, whatever. But
My God, yeah, we used to
remember,
do that. I don't do that
'cause-
anymore.
no,
because there's no
'cause-
time.
yeah. No, and it's
It's
different
changed,
nowadays.
it's
Like you don't go on your browser and be like, okay, www, like let's read. It's more like you get on your email, the newsletters. So the whole way of consuming content changed so much throughout these years, and it's very interesting to see. But going back to the answer, because I always go weird. So I decided to do my blog because I was already working for this website. I was already writing for Vogue, so I had a website, I had a magazine. Okay. But as a blog reader, I really thought that the language was very interesting because it was another way of communicating. It was another way of talking about beauty because it went by your personal... there was a personal element to it. So on the magazine and on the website, I was a reporter reporting. It's not like what I think. And on the blog, it was me. So the reason why I think blogs went so big was the whole identification element as a, like, this is a normal person, she could be my friend, and she's talking about beauty, she's doing makeup, she's doing makeup on herself, she's using a red lipstick. Because until then, everything was way more like, it was so far. It was very like, oh, the model looks nice with this makeup. Of course, she's a model, but I'm not gonna look nice because I'm a normal person. So the whole, like, it started to disrupt that like distance between like, and even like writing the piece. One thing is when you write as a reporter, so you're reporting. The other thing is when you're like, so I went there and I did that and I tried this treatment,
More like
and that's what
personal,
so point of view. So very different. And for me, it was really the idea of having a space to talk about these things. And I loved the fact that you would have an instant interaction with the people who were reading you. Because that's another thing that on the website, we didn't have that because it was 18 years ago. Websites were almost as magazines. They were like also like a voice from above, let's say. There was no comments. It was not interactive at the time in magazines, imagine. So it was that was the thing that kind of attracted me, and it's always been the thing that I love the most about the internet, is the connection you have, the exchange you have with people. It's incredible, the amount of people that I've met throughout these years because of that. And then obviously, and then I started doing some in-person events that we would like gather people.
But at the time of the blog or the later on stage?
Blog. We used to, that was very, very pioneer. I joined forces with three other friends, three friends, two blogs. And we started doing these meetups. They always had a theme, and we would just gather our readers and like talk about stuff. And it was incredible. And that I'm talking like 15, 14 years ago. So wow. It was really interesting. And then obviously parallel to that, I had like my career at Vogue. That was really amazing to kind of build the beauty section on the magazine, because
at the time magazines, they were more about the fashion, like the red wear. But then it's at some point the magazine started being about both, right? Talk about the beauty, but also the fashion itself. So you were part of that transition where the magazine decided to have the beauty editorial or the beauty articles. Because I remember, like 20 years ago, that the magazine, they wouldn't have much content around beauty, but at certain point it was like half and half.
Yeah, half and half. I don't think Vogue in Brazil ever was, but when I started, I think we probably had like 4 or 5 pieces, articles per issue, and I grew to like, there were times when we would have like 18 articles. So we really grew the beauty section, and I think it was a very interesting time also for publishing in Brazil, for Vogue in Brazil. So I really got like a really amazing time, and that opened so many doors for me. I had so many experiences with like press trips, traveling abroad with brands, a lot of fashion weeks. So it was really, really interesting. And then I moved here, and then I was even closer to everything that was happening. So that was also really nice. And then and then Instagram also came that before
and
I
the
moved.
social media,
So,
yeah. It's and Vicky, just because like look, listen to your speaking. So you've been in this, evolution of marketing for like 17, 18 years. They were saying. So how does it feel like to knowing that you were the pioneers on blog and then the blogs, and you were saying that you used to do meetups back in the days and meetups today? Again, we call it IRL experience. It's becoming more and more important for brands and for influencers because, influencers, their community want to have access to the influencer. They want to meet them. They want to interact with them. It's the same with brands, especially after COVID, where for brands are so important that they create those experiences for their consumer to get to know them and they get to feel the brand. But looks like you've been doing quite a lot from even things that people are discovering now that it's important. But how do you feel like being on the blog days and where we are today with not just the social, because if it was just as Instagram, but it's not. You have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have Snapchat, and you have YouTube, and then you have Shorts, and then now with the AI. So how do you navigate through all these chains? Because it's a lot. Do you navigate in the sense that this is a new trend, I'm going to jump into TikTok. Oh no, the new trend, now it's YouTube is becoming a new thing. You go to the YouTube. So how do you measure the evolution, but where do you need to go, or where you go and say, no, I'm okay just to be what I'm doing. I don't need to jump in every trend. How to navigate that?
And that is a very good question. I definitely don't think there's a formula. And for sure, this is something that everyone is considering and thinking about, because there are so many options nowadays, so many platforms and so many kind of paths that you can take that I think it's hard. It was so much easier when I started because it was, you had one place to be, one thing to do.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have so many, but obviously nowadays you also have people with like a story that you can look back and be like, so what am I going to do for my strategy? I feel like for me, I've never had a strategy. So when I decided to launch my brand
you have
5
to have
years
a strategy.
ago, then I was like, okay, launching my brand, at this point in time, I'm not going to do it like I did with my career as a journalist content creator, that I went like, just let's see what happens. Not that I was always taking it very seriously, of course, but it's not that I had like a plan. Mm-hmm. And with the brand, it was very different. So it was a very interesting exercise for me to kind of do the brand in such a different way from how I did my career. But I also feel like being here for so long, nowadays, I am more focused on the brand. I feel like there's so much that I need to do for the brand to grow it and to, make it the way I want it to be. So, for example, TikTok is not something that I managed to kind of explore, because when TikTok came along, I was already working on the brand's projects, and it's really hard. It's so hard. So most people don't know how much work you have to do to create content. It's a lot.
But people don't know that.
People don't know that. I know.
They really think to create content is something that is very natural and easy. That you're here, just like, I need to do TikTok. Let's do it. Post, and that's it.
Just, you know that because you go through that. So nowadays, I have my routine. I have a lot of meetings, a lot of decision making, a lot of, things that we need to plan ahead, to have a strategy, to create, etc. for the brand. so many days when I realized it's like, oh my God, it's 7 p.m. I have zero content to post from my day to day, and it's okay. So that was one of the things that I really came to terms with throughout the process of building the brand, that I wouldn't be able to be as present on the internet as I used to be. So my blog became a website, and I have a team. So the blog is something that it's not me anymore writing all the blog posts, because I can't. But I still really believe in the format of, having
That's
a
what
platform.
I was saying, like, because this is like a pause there, because that means you still have the blog, which I think it's so amazing that you kept the blog going, even with all this evolution of the industry on marketing in general, right? So you never gave up of your blog. So your blog is still there.
It's still there. We made it into like a website, because I think blog has really the personal connection and connotation. So it's not me anymore writing, but it's still me very much involved in thinking about all the topics we're going to write about and all the articles. I still read everything. So I think I really believe in beauty content. And what happens nowadays is you have a lot of ways of doing it. So if you go on TikTok, you have to be very fast, short form. For me, that is the most difficult one, because I talk a lot, clearly, as you can see. and my school of content creation is
different,
going very deep in the story of the brand I'm talking about, or because I have that backlog of information from being a beauty journalist for so long. So for me, it's more about explaining why, explaining how, showing, talking through it. So obviously for me, like if I do a video, I had to retrain to do like shorter videos. So doing a video with a script, for example, is something I never did before. I used to just go
and talk.
Press rec and go and talk. Blah, blah, blah. Now, but then you realize if you want to do a short video, you have to have like a structure. So I have so that for me, and then I feel so dumb, because when I have a script, I always go like, oh, got it wrong. Oh, got it wrong again.
Like that.
Got it wrong again. I'm like, I promise I can do this, but it's hard. So it's another, and it's interesting how we have to kind of manage our skills and kind of adapt a lot. But then a lot of things come back. So that is very fascinating. Like podcasts is something that, if you think about, it's radio. So radio was like, whatever, radio. And then suddenly you have so it's reinventing the formats, but all the formats are valid because people consume content in different moments of their day. So I think for an influencer, as it's a very personal thing, you have to think like, where do you want to be and how much time can you dedicate to have a presence on those platforms. And as a brand, I think you need to understand like how you're gonna be in each one of these platforms. And if you don't want to be on all of them, of course, it's totally fine, but they all have opportunities. And how do you use and kind of enjoy? Yeah.
And I think with the brands as well, Vic, now that you have a brand, because when you talk about your own persona as a content creator, an influencer, exactly what you're saying, you can choose if you wanted to navigate into other platforms, if there's a relevance for you. But as a brand, now you have to look at where your consumers are, right? Because then it's not about just more Vicky and her community, but it's more about, okay, so now I have a brand, where are my consumers? Like where they're coming from, how they're finding us, and what are the ages, right? Like is it Gen Z, is it millennials? Because depends of who your clients are, you're gonna have to make sure that you have a presence, to make sure that you're gonna have a touch points where they're going to see your brand and engage with your brand and interact with your brand. How do you feel about now having to looking into, let's call data? I know it's a boring word, but how do you feel like about now with my brand, I need to look at data, because you need to look at data. Not that
Totally.
with influencers they don't need to look, but there are some influencers that okay, you can look at data as more of a curiosity, like to understand demographic of your our community and age. But as a brand, to develop a brand, you need to look at data. So how has been your like how to shift that mindset? How do you find it?
It's I mean, data is very helpful. So I am really bad with numbers and data, and I am more on the creative side. But I think it's very helpful as a tool, and there are a lot of very useful tools, and I think you really need to use all of them to kind of help you create the strategy. I don't think you will base everything on data, because there's a lot of feeling and a lot of like insights
Emotion,
that you get.
connections.
Exactly. So it's kind of like how you put everything together. And I think, for example, again, each platform will give you something different. And so in the end, it's about like using data to understand where your consumer is, what do you want to talk about, where you are going to talk about which things. So if you think about Pinterest, it's one of my favorite platforms. I love
Good.
Pinterest.
I didn't know you love Pinterest.
I love
Okay.
Pinterest.
Do you use a lot of it?
I personally use it a lot. For the brand, we still, because each platform requires a lot of planning, strategy, and, man, how do you
Working
say?
it. Like
Working
manpower,
hours
yes.
to put it, to kind of make it happen. So we always say, because we are, we have 1 year of being in the world, and we still have a lot of things we want to do, but we know we have to pick our battles and focus where we can do it properly. So for example, now our main focus is still Instagram, but then we are always kind of monitoring the others. And even, for example, Facebook is kind of like, it's not sexy, it's not cool, but so many people are on Facebook. So how can you I think there is a lot of trial and error and a lot of experimenting. And I think when you are a small, young brand, you have more flexibility to kind of try everything. It's less of you don't have to, when you're a big
That
brand.
pressure that you have to get it right at first, right?
Exactly.
So you have an opportunity to test and learn, and
Exactly.
which is super important.
Yeah. So we are kind of on that stage, I would say.
Of like test and learn and understand what your consumers, how they're engaging with your brand.
Yes. And we are only talking digital, but of course there's the whole physical side. As you said, a lot of real life events are now super relevant. We're opening our first shop in São Paulo next week.
That
I'm
is so exciting.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the first.
The first.
And then now you're going to have the opportunity to interact with your consumers and getting more people to discover a brand. And it will be very interesting for you, because you will see that it's going to be very different for the interaction of online, because it's going to have the discoverability, because maybe there are, people that they're not active on social as much, and then they are more on the interaction of discovering brands real time. And then you're gonna have the fans that are ready for the brand, that they will come to actually maybe see you, but test the brand and understand, how the brand translated when it comes to an experience. So that will be a very important, change factor.
I agree 100%, and that's why I'm super excited. I think, having been building my following base for so long, so many people that read my blog 16 years ago, 10 years ago, but nowadays, but you're still kind of there because you work with that, so you need to see what's going on.
I discovered you 17 years ago. Like I didn't even, I was not like, I was studying still the uni, but I remember like my first, how I discovered you was through the Julia Petit blog. What's the name? It was Julia Petit, that was just Petiscos. So I think you wrote, or she mentioned about you on her blog, and then I clicked the link and then I discovered a blog. That's how I get to know you. But I've been a reader when you started, you and Julia Petit, I remember I was obsessed.
But you see, nowadays, if you didn't still work with digital marketing, would you still be like, you wouldn't be reading blogs?
No, I wouldn't be reading blogs.
Because also there is a interest factor. So maybe you feel like, okay, my life nowadays is like, I have a job, I have kids, I don't need to learn anymore. Like I already learned, I already saw the tutorials, I already have the products that I wanted to buy. So it's a different way of consuming content. And then a lot of people are not on Instagram anymore because they got tired of Instagram. I have so many friends who deleted Instagram and they're not.
And where are they if they delete the Instagram? Or they're not anywhere? Or they're reading blogs or podcasts?
They're anywhere. They're nowhere. They're nowhere. So they just don't, like, their relationships with their phones is like, okay, I already have to work. You have WhatsApp to like talk to your friends, your family, do the admin, like house admin, family admin, whatever. Like, no, they will read a book, or they might like subscribe to a few newsletters that they will read because, it comes to their email. Maybe they will check Instagram once a day and be like, okay, nice. And more to see like what their friends are doing, not necessarily to follow like a lot of, so it really changed. We had moments, we had the blogging moments, we had the influencer moments, or they might be on TikTok because maybe like their daughter is on TikTok and they went to see what's on and now they're hooked on TikTok, but they're not on Instagram.
Because they want to check the content of their kids.
So I think about those things a lot because when you work with Instagram, you think that everyone is there, but it's not true. And maybe they are on Facebook. Maybe they're just looking at Pinterest. Maybe they are not doing anything on their phones and they are reading magazines again. So, because we were just talking about this, how I really believe magazines are having a comeback, and people, because in the end, that's like, you are looking at a screen the whole day. Maybe when you get home and you're gonna rest, you don't want to get your phone because you end up getting stuck.
That's why we have the streaming platforms that are doing so well, like Apple, Amazon Prime, and Netflix, because more and more people are trying to find options that is not necessarily on the screen. And I think that's the big win for the streaming platform, and that's why they're investing so much. Because, like, for example, give an experience of myself. When I get home, when I put Antonio at bed, and because I work with digital, right, marketing all the time, checking content from influencers for campaigns, or doing my own Instagram, or check the content for MG. So at the end of my day, when Antonio is sleeping, when the house is quiet, if I still have time, because sometimes I don't have, but if I still have time, it's a book, or it's a Netflix, but then I cannot look at my screen. I was just like, okay, that's all for now. I need to look at the words in a different way.
Exactly, because if you get your phone and you go, because it's work. Yeah. So for us, like when I'm on Instagram, it's not a relaxing thing. It's work because it's always a research of some sort, or you're interacting with people, which is a big part of what we do, is networking. So it's very interesting to see how pulverized it got, because before you had like one media, and then you had two medias, and then you had three, but until blogs, I feel like it was pretty much controlled. You had radio, books, magazines, internet, blogs. Okay, then it went like, so I feel like a lot of people are everywhere. So some people are in different places, some people are not on any of them.
Vicky, and then like you mentioned about like the word influence, right? So again, when we talk about influencers, when you start as a content creator, but the content creator name didn't even exist at the time.
No, it was
just like blogging and then influencers, right? So there was the big momentum of the arrival of the influencers, which there was not many, right? If you think about it. And then at one point, the industry of influencer exploded. There was like beauty influencers everywhere, fashion influencers everywhere, and then there was just like so many different niches or types of influencers. How do you see that now?
I think it's a maturity of the ecosystem. So when I started, I was the disruption, because it was the different kind of point of view versus the existing media that was magazine. not to go too further. So you had the magazines, the fashion, beauty, whatever, women's magazines, and then you had blogs. That was a disruption. You had a few blogs. Then with Instagram, it was, I mean, I am from a moment. My blog in the beginning only had copy. There was
Not
no
even
photos.
pictures.
Not even pictures. So moving from that to having like like YouTube was already very different. But all of that, people were still on their computers. You didn't have a phone. When I started my blog, there was no smartphone. So that's
She's been the time, like you're getting this, right? So she's being about, it's a long journey.
it's crazy. I don't know, for some reason,
crazy.
yes, just yesterday, I was trying to find a very old picture. And I started going through like my backup of very old pictures. And I found some pictures from the really, really start of my blogging career. And it's so funny because I can see this from not having a phone that took pictures. And I already had the blog. And then I had a phone that took pictures. And then you see the photos. It's so funny. So when it moved to being on your computer at home to being on your mobile phone, that also changed a lot. And from each change, I feel like it was the possibilities of creators were getting bigger and bigger, because what is really important, and it's amazing that happened, is that it became broader and broader in terms of voices. So again, I was a disruptor when you had the magazines, Unreachable, and who exactly is talking, like who's right, to having like a person that could be your friend. And that evolved and pulverized in exactly like when you started with the big influencers, you had a few. Then you started, and then they went super big. And then you started having the micro influencers, the nano influencers. And then you have TikTok, which is less glossy than Instagram. But when you think about it, like Instagram was the less glossy version of the blogs that were the less glossy version of the magazines. So there's always gonna be like a maturity to the platform that you have like
a connection from the past.
And then people will be like, okay, I don't connect with this person anymore because I started connecting with her because she had a lifestyle that was similar to mine. But now she's gone like, woo. And now I feel like I connect more to this like super like small influencer that, is from the same city as I am. And she has a very similar like lifestyle so there are many reasons that make you identify with. But I think it's amazing how you have so many options nowadays, and you have so many ways of creating content as well. Because you can go through like, you do the educational, you do the entertaining, you do the, visually interesting, or you're like copy and you write like super long Substack newsletters for people who like to read. So there are so many options.
So you're saying that there's an opportunity for, for everyone when they wants to become a content creator or an influencer, because at one point there was a debate, would that influencers at some point become obsolete? But it's not.
No, I think it's the
opposite, right? Because it's continued to growing, and it's so like being an agency, we can see that the influencers are continue to grow in terms of, as you said, now we have the nanos, we have the micros, and then we have the macros and the megas and the celebrities. So the segmentations changed. But when I started with the agency, brands, they only wanted to know about the megas and the macros because they thought that the number of followers is what matters. That's it. But nowadays, with the data points that we have, it's not just about the number of followers. There's so many, data points that you can look into when engage with an influencer. And each segment of influencer can add value. It's not
for
different reasons, right? So the mega can add value a lot on the brand awareness, on reach, whereas maybe the micro and nano, depending on the engagement rate, they can convert better. So it's like, because people always ask, there's no more space for more influencer. no, there is a space for influencers too, because more and more brands need that peer-to-peer, connection, and who can do that peer-to-peer are the influencers. So it's just like, it's incredible to see that once there was a thought that the influencers will no longer exist in like a year time, 2 years time, but we can see that there is space for everyone, because everyone can add it a different value, to your point, because you can create so many different contents that if you're authentic to yourself, there is space for everyone. And brands, more and more, they need content creators.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, what I think that really happened is it became super complex, and it's a lot of work nowadays. So before it's like, okay, it's easy. Nothing is easy, but it's easy. You have these big names here, you pick one,
send the
done.
product done. Get
Nowadays, you have to be really like, okay, what do you want from this campaign? And you have to be super like granular. And of course, it's more work. And there are so many influencers, so many people that, I mean, from a brand now, from the experience I've been having with the brand, it's fascinating the amount of people there are, the amazing content they create. And you want to have a connection with everyone. And in terms of like, is there space? I think there's always going to be space, because in the end, the word of mouth, for me, is the most important and relevant marketing tool. And it's the one you can't control. So for me, like, blogging was a kind of word of mouth, because it was like a normal person talking about something. So you would be like, okay, this could be a friend. Like, it's a friend that knows a lot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have that friend, sometimes you don't. So you will resort to like this one that could be my friend, and she knows a lot about this specific subject. So the more like the normal person becomes the celebrity, you open a space for more normal people to kind of join and be the ones connecting. If you have 100 people following base that are friends of yours and people you know, but if you post about a product and 50 of those people buy the product, you're the best influencer for the brand. Because that's a conversion rate that you won't get from even a nano.
No, you won't.
So it's the same as in you're sitting with your friends in a dinner table and you talk about a product that you tried and you love. All your friends will be like, "Oh, amazing!
I want to try too.
I want to try too." And I get that a lot with my products, and it's really funny. It's like my friends, they're like, "Okay, can you bring the products when you come?" Because I have some friends, they want to see the products and they want to try, and they want me to tell them which one is the one for them. So in the end, like, you really trust. You
trust more, people than you trust content from brands directly. Yeah. That's for sure.
So it's a very powerful tool, and everyone is an influencer. I think that the question is that now everyone is an influencer,
because you can be an influencer, as you said, from different person perspective, right? Because, like, for example, having a business, and now you have a business as well. I loved first listen to podcasts about entrepreneurship, about marketing, about leadership, and I follow nowadays on social media much more influencers around the B2B aspect, about leadership, being an entrepreneur, challenge of a business, because that type of content interests me. And then I stopped following a lot of, content that for my reality today, it doesn't fit what I'm looking in terms of information. So I think, and then some of like leaders that I follow to get, more knowledge about leadership, they sometimes have like 2,000 followers, 5,000 followers. Not, of course, there's the biggest ones, but everyone is an influencer at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
And exactly. Vicky, influencer, entrepreneur. What's like? How you find it, and is there any preference, or like it's just wanted to have your perspective, because now it's being an owner of a business is a completely different game of being a content creator. So tell me about
Yeah, it's
content creator in Tiffany?
it's very interesting. I mean, I still do a lot of work as an influencer. So I still
Yeah.
work with brands and I still do that side. But then most of my time is very needed from the brand's side. So it's a lot of juggling, I would say, and a lot of energy required to kind of be able to do everything. I think I'm always gonna be a content creator, regardless of anything, because I think in the end it's about communicating with people and talking about stuff that are interesting to me. So even if, when I go on, if I find something interesting and I'm traveling and I want to talk about a restaurant, or I'm going to a art exhibition and I want to share that, I think there's always going to be that component of creating content also on stuff and topics that are not necessarily beauty. For the brand, it's very important still that I am very active in that space of being the
Because you drive the...
Yes, exactly. And I am the founder of the brand. The brand is very connected to me, so it makes sense for me to still be like super present. I have no idea how that is going to evolve. Obviously, also on the brand, I think all the brands nowadays, especially if you talk about makeup, you need to have a lot of other people creating content and using the products. And for me, this is one of the most exciting bits of the job, because it's really nice to see like the product being used by people and how they do it and the tricks they have. So that is incredible. But yeah, I think again, everyone is an influencer. So even if I'm talking about something that is not beauty, I will still in a way be creating content. And I think because of my background as a journalist, I always feel very, I have a duty with information, so that is something that I will always think about. But then sometimes I'm so like busy and overwhelmed by everything that my sharing content will be kind of just to be like, hi, I'm alive, but I can't do everything as much as I wanted to. So I feel like I'm doing less in terms of content nowadays. But it's a whole like balancing.
What is the biggest challenge of having your own brand?
Nossa, so many. I think they are infinite. I think
Tell me three.
Three. Well, for me, one of them is the fact that I live in London and my brand is in Brazil and everything is happening there. So, but that's an option as well, because I really love living in London and I think it gives me a lot to be here. So for as long as I can manage my plan is to continue like that. Of course, I'm going to Brazil much more nowadays, but to kind of have both of them is very important to me. But it is a challenge, like in terms of, I think time management is a big challenge for sure. I think having the anxiety managing as well, like
very important
because I think, as I said earlier, like about picking your battles, it's really hard, because when you stop and you look around, you'll be like, you see so many opportunities. We get amazingly approached by so many people that want to like do stuff with the brand, carry the brand in their shops, or do some kind of partnership. And all the ideas that we have, the things that we get approached with, and the opportunities that we see. Like, just if you narrow to which social media platforms are we going to be in, that's already like, you see the opportunities, but you cannot do everything at the same time. So I think it's managing that and
anxiety.
Yes.
You cannot do everything at once.
And you have to make choices and understand that, the choices are temporary. Because maybe, next step, you will be able to do something else. And then next step, you shift your focus. So I think that is very challenging to kind of have the long-term vision, but also knowing what do you have to do now. Because you can't build, I really don't believe in building in that is not like one step at a time. And I think you really have to have that kind of like brain.
No, you do. 100%. And I tell from my own experience as well, like, being developing MG, there's like the vision is so important, like the long-term vision, but understand that that's what's called long-term vision, right? Because I can identify to what you're saying, because sometimes there's an anxiety that you wanted to do everything at once, and you can. So you have, okay, let's add this to the list of the long-term vision, but let's focus on the present, on the now, what I have to do now as a business in order to go to the next steps and then to the next step, but making sure the long-term vision is not going to get lost, right? Because it's super important that you attach to that long-term vision, you stick to it, and you work towards that, knowing that to get there, there's no ladder that you have to step by step, and then you get there, because otherwise, especially nowadays, anxiety is the new, like I would say, this is not the new trend, because I don't want to call this a trend.
No, it's like
but
an
it's the new
epidemic.
epidemic of the humanity, right? Because there's the anxiety is like, because the world is evolving really quickly, and then you feel like you have to go together with all the, the things that are happening. And AI is another thing. So where do you see AI?
Nossa, for me, I think I live in a parallel world where AI is still not a thing that I need to consider, because I promise, like, not joking, I have seen like people going on ChatGPT and like doing, but I have never gone myself, never went there to try.
You never tried?
Which is very weird. It's almost like, are you in denial? But to be fair, I think I'm too like, okay, I can't, when you feel like, okay, this is too much, I'm just going to leave it there. I will deal with that later. So yes. For now, I'm like, okay, let's be a bit more practical and like deal with the stuff that I have to deal with now. But I think the whole anxiety thing is because one of the factors, obviously, so there are so many, but there are so many options. Everyone has so many options nowadays regardless of where you are, what you do, how old you are. Everything is so full of options nowadays. Even, again, I keep going back to this example because I think it's a good one. It's like, which social media are you going to be using on your daily life? Because you have to choose. You can't get like all the content from Instagram, from TikTok, from Pinterest, from Twitter. I'll be calling it Twitter forever. I refuse. For me it's Twitter. So there are so many. Or you're gonna listen to a podcast, or you're gonna like watch a video on YouTube. Like, you have a specific amount of time that you can dedicate to that.
Do you have a personal life plus?
But imagine, for example, okay, I have a content consuming slot on my day, because if you don't work with that, I mean, obviously you can always consume content that is related to your work and that counts as study, whatever, learning, but you have like that 1 hour on your day that you're gonna just chill, and you have to choose choosing a film to watch.
It's impossible. Sometimes I stay like just scrolling for like a half an hour. It's like, oh my God, but it's already 11. I need to go to bed.
Exactly. So I feel like that really, sometimes the more you dive into how many options there are, the crazier you go. And then you're like, I wish someone would just choose for me.
Yeah.
Choose for me.
And then you go there. Vicky, we can see here forever, because it's so good to like, it's not the first time that we're having this conversation about like, this is the first time that we're doing this conversation for everyone to listen. But I think even when I talk to you, I've learned a lot from you, and then look to where you were, how we started, and to see now you with your brand. It's just like, it's an incredible, career and evolution. And I think like your brand is just going to become, a big thing, because you as a beauty influencer, beauty journalist, you have established such, an incredible respect, from readers and from everyone that's admire you, because for me, I always say to the makeup artist when I have to do makeup with makeup artists, I normally don't like. And then I go like, oh, the only makeup I like is the one that Vic did in me in New York for the Halloween. And then I always think like go back to the pictures like Vic is the only one that knows how to do makeup on me. So I think it's just like you have established that reputation, right, about being this incredible beauty influencer yourself, but every article that you wrote and your blog, and I think your brand, it was a natural path for you, especially when you did the MAC collab. So that MAC collab, remember, of course you remember because you did the collab, but it exploded. Remember, your lipstick, I think, sold out in days, right? So I think that was probably a big sign for you. That was a time for you to move to have your own brand because there would not be any risk. So I'm super proud and looking forward to continue to see you evolve on this journey. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ma. Those words were incredibly kind, and I am very happy and humbled. Thank you very much. Thank you for the space, and always the conversation is always so great. I'm very excited. Thank you for being there and cheering.
Always.
Hopefully I have this obviously huge dream and wish of bringing my brand.
That will be my next question. Yes.
But again, that's the, one step at a time situation. So obviously, like, this is one of the things I want the most is to have Vic Beauté outside of Brazil. And then obviously, like, in England, I live here. Yeah. So for me, it makes so much sense. But, have to do things slowly and properly.
Yeah.
So that is...
But I don't have doubt that Vic Beauté will come internationally because you are here in London and you already have as well your community that are the communities that are here, and then you have Portugal because you have a huge community in Portugal that knows you and follows you. I think it's going to be a natural next step for you. But to your point, as you said, like one thing at a time. But I personally, I can envision that already. So I don't think that why not? It's just a time and it's gonna be very, very natural. So it's just coming, right? So just like I am the one that I want to buy as well, but I'm waiting for go to Brazil and then go to the website. But I'm sure, a lot of, our audience will be asking, like, where can I find Vic Beauté? For now, it's on the e-commerce in Brazil.
Yes, and then we'll have the shop in Iguatemi. Yes.
And then soon, she will come internationally. Just watch this space.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, Vic. And thank you for everyone that's been with us today. I hope you have enjoyed our conversation. Vic it's amazing. And then, like, it's such a pleasure to have her here with us. So hope everyone have enjoyed this conversation. So keep tuned on our next episode. And if you don't follow us, please make sure you do on YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. You see how many channels we have for our podcast. So it's not just Spotify. And thank you for being with us. We are very grateful to know that we have this audience that keep, coming back to listen to our amazing conversation with our amazing guests. And I see you next episode. Thank you so much.